Please stay tuned for a brief message from Jimmy Aiken.
This week we celebrate Epiphany, the moment when the light of Christ was revealed to the world. Here at StarQuest, that light shines through the work we do each week, more than 50 hours of exploring modern culture through the lenses of faith and reason. Our Advent campaign ends at the close of Epiphany Week, and your monthly support is still being matched up to $15,000. Join or increase your support by $10 this week, and if you're among our first 400 patrons, you'll receive a Mysterious World sticker signed by Don Bettinelli and me. Visit sqpn.com/give to make your gift before Epiphany. Thank you.
The Third Age is brought to you by Círdan Shipwrights. Want to sail away from it all? Círdan's. Find ships and boats since before the sun. Círdan's the only way to find the straight path.
And Sauron's Ring Emporium. No matter what race you hail from, Sauron's got a ring for you. Let Sauron and company find your one ring today.
And
the Halls of Mandos, specializing in stonework, tile flooring, maze making, and doom. Since the dawn of time, the Halls of Mandos. You'll be here a while.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. And I'm your host, Thomas Salerno, and joining me today is Pat Mason. Hello, Pat.
Howdy, Thomas.
And Jeff Haecker. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Thomas.
And today we will be finally wrapping up that long last, the Silmarillion, with part 2 of The Rings of Power in the Third Age. But before we jump into that, be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth in Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app of your choice. And you can find us on social media at Facebook, at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, on X, where we are at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we are at StarQuest Network. And don't forget to get your official Secrets of Middle-earth merch. I'm sure plenty of our listeners have Christmas money to spend, so why not get our awesome t-shirt at sqpn.com/merch. It's a great way to support our show and to show off your love for Tolkien and his wonderful world of Middle-earth. And as of the date of recording, yesterday, January the 3rd, was J.R.R. Tolkien's birthday. So if you start listening to this recording around 7:30 p.m. your local time, you can raise a glass of adult beverage or not, whatever, and toast the professor at 9 p.m. Stay tuned for our toast at the end. I've got coffee here. So that's what I'll be doing. So feel free also to send a picture of your toast and your beverage to our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. Jeff, do we have any news this week?
Yeah, just a little bit. So this, we haven't recorded in a little while, so some of this has already been out for a bit, but the Lord of the Rings films are coming back to theaters. I think this month. I think The Fellowship will be in theaters, or it could be early February. I'm not sure, but yeah, so the films are back. I don't think they're the extended editions, unfortunately, at least from what I've seen.
I heard they were.
I think it depends on
maybe
your
it's dependent
particular
on
theater.
Yeah, maybe so. But either way, they're back in the theaters. So if you never experienced them in the theater, they do this about every year or so. But now's a great time. And then some Rings of Power news is that it wrapped filming season 3. So it'll probably be in next year in the fall when we're finally watching it. But that is
next year being 2027.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Next year is no longer 2026.
Unless they get, because their filming schedule has been off, so maybe it'll be like an early 2027 thing. But anyway, the show wrapped filming, and among other news bits, there was a report of a character, Balbor the Beardless, who will be a dwarf lord in Rings of Power. So,
Poor guy.
Is that supposed to be Durin's brother, or is it a different character?
I don't know.
Do we know?
I think what I saw just said he's supposed to be a dwarf lord.
Okay.
And will not have a beard.
Beardless dwarf. That ought to be that's new.
Yeah. So I was joking on the Discord that he would be the descendant, or he'd be the ancestor of Killian Philly, because at the crossing of an elf, they'll finally have an elf dwarf child. There's our reference.
We got it out of the way early.
But yeah, that's
maybe
the news
he's
that
the ancestor of Dopey from Snow White. He doesn't have a beard.
Yeah,
maybe. But yeah, that's the news that I saw. I'm sure there's more bits and pieces out there, but yeah, stay tuned for anything else comes out. We will be sure to talk about it on here.
Nice. All right. So it's been a while since our last episode. I've been ill, so we haven't been able to record for a while.
You were on the verge of the Morgul Vale, and you had to get some elvish medicine.
I totally was, or at least I'd been struck dumb by the Witch King because I lost my voice for several days. But now I'm back. I have gotten rid. I've had some Athalas steeped in burning water, so I'm all better. And we can continue our discussion of the final section of the Silmarillion on the Rings of Power and the Third Age. And so we left off after the War of the Last Alliance, right? That is where we left off, right? Okay,
yeah. We basically cut it where the Third Age begins.
Yep.
Since this episode is and the Third Age.
And the Third Age, right? Yeah, makes sense. All right, awesome. Yeah. So we begin where we left off in Mordor. Sauron defeated for the time being, and the White Tree returns to Gondor again. So we have this lineage of the White Tree going on. Now, instead of being in Isildur city of Minas Ithil, it's in Anarian city of Minas Anor. And I kind of find that interesting. Like, it sort of symbolizes the crown of Gondor passing from like Isildur's line to Anarian's line, at least for the time being.
Yeah, it's almost like the tree has also, along with the crown, because Isildur chose not to destroy the ring, it's kind of like the tree would not have prospered or flowered under Isildur anymore because of that. So it has to go to another person in the line in order to, continue to fruit and flower and pass on its descendants as well.
Yeah, because Isildur is now carrying around Sauron's phylactery with him. And all the problems that
I thought it was his Horcrux.
Oh, Jeff.
We don't have Rob here to do his Gollum.
Yeah, I know, right? Gollum. Yeah, so it's funny to me because Isildur makes the same mistake that or not the same mistake, but Isildur and the rest of the folks make a similar mistake that we see throughout the book, and that is, they defeat the dark power and then they don't finish the job. Right. First it was, we got Morgoth, but we forgot about the rest of the stuff in Utumno, or
going all the way back to the first battles in the in the
We
Silmarillion.
didn't chase down all of his followers and put them in the halls too.
Yeah, and then all the way to we didn't drag Sauron back. We gave that choice to him, and then now to Isildur. I'm keeping the ring. I'm like, you were so close, man. You were so close.
Cast it into the fire. Destroy it.
Destroy it. I was there, Gandalf.
I was there, Gandalf. Yeah, it's like, and the Dark Tower is leveled, but the foundations are not destroyed. So again, they didn't do the whole job. They left the foundations there. And I remember reading somewhere that that in some ways they couldn't destroy it because the foundations of Barad-dûr were laid with the power of the ring. So there's some kind of magic in them. That as long as the ring is still around, the foundations of Barad-dûr cannot be totally destroyed.
Yeah, and that makes sense too. I mean, because it's Sauron, the ring, and the foundations, and Mordor are all they're all tied together through the Horcrux. So,
What's really sad, though, too, is that you kind of see with Isildur taking the ring for his own, it kind of begins that kind of estrangement between elves and men that you see play out throughout the Third Age, where the Last Alliance really was the last alliance. It was kind of the last hurrah of large armies of elves and men cooperating against the Dark Powers. We won't see anything like that again. In the War of the Ring, the armies are of the West are mostly of men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got the men of Rohan and the men of Gondor and the Pukul men.
Yes.
We should do versions. You have the elves joining the men of Rohan.
Yeah,
at Helm's Deep.
Yes, but not with a huge army either. Even in the movie, they show up with maybe a company's worth of guys. But yeah, speaking of the Pukul men, we should eventually do an episode on the Pukul men because there's some really interesting stuff about them in the Unfinished Tales.
Yeah,
that is really neat.
Oh, and the Ghost men. Sorry, I forgot about them. But
yeah,
they're men too.
Oh yes, yes, they're men. They're ghosts, but they're the ghosts of men. So yeah, and and I think part of it too is because a lot of elves choose to sail west during this time. So even if they wanted to join in the battles of the end of the War of the Ring, there's really not a lot of elves. They really have enough troops to defend their borders of Lorien and Mirkwood, and that's it. They're not able to send out huge armies anymore. This isn't this isn't the League of Mithros anymore. You can't,
No.
Which is sad.
Yeah, the only thing that comes close is the Battle of Five Armies in The Hobbit, because you have the Men of Dale and the Elves of Mirkwood and the Dwarfs of the Iron Mountains, and they're all kind of, for that battle. they're all in, but it's not like the 7-year siege and war that you have with the Last Alliance, which is a full-blown real fight. It's more similar to the Allies in World War II or something, where we're all getting together for years on end. It's a single battle. It's sort of like this shadow of the Last Alliance, which of course is a shadow of the League of Mithros, which is a shadow of the before that.
And this whole thing of the fading of the elves and the estrangement of the two kindreds is one of the big themes of the Lord of the Rings, that when the Lord of the Rings takes place at the end of the Third Age is about the dominion of men. It's about men taking over it. Lord of the Rings is about a fantasy world where magic is going away. Yep. We think of it as a world of magic, but really it's about a world of magic that's going to be no more. The Fourth Age is just full blown the age of men, pretty much. And oh gosh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
Except for the magic of friendship.
No, friendship is
Yeah,
magic.
I mean, right. Yeah.
Mostly between horses.
But yeah, Isildur takes the ring and marches north. If you've seen the Fellowship of the Ring movie, you basically know how this turns out. He marches away and is ambushed by orcs. Well, let's just say he doesn't have a good end. You know, have either of you ever read The Disaster of the Gladden Fields in The Unfinished Tales?
Yes.
No.
Okay, so Pat, you've read it. Yeah, so like that expands a lot on what happened to Isildur and him being ambushed by the orcs and like him giving instructions for one of his guys to flee with the shards of Narsil to Rivendell. And it actually shows like a much different version of his death than like what you see in the movie.
Mhm.
In the movie, he's just like, he's
But the ring
swimming.
betrayed Isildur.
It betrayed him, right? It slips off, and the orcs shoot him while he's swimming. And in this alternate version, he's actually able to make it to the shoreline, but when he's coming out of the water, the orcs think he's some kind of monster coming out of the river and shoot him. But it's an interesting alternate take on this, because like the movie, they've only got like a minute or two to tell you what happens, so they give you like the shortest version possible.
Yeah, short version. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, it still captures the important part, which is he's been overcome by pride, effectively. And I think in part through the power of the ring, like the ring's telling him, don't worry about it. You're master now. There's nothing that can stand before you. There's no other bad guys in the world. And he just goes up there with a small troop and just gets hammered by the orcs who were not part of the Mordor orcs. Turns out they're everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just tragic because he was such a hero in the Akalabeth when he saved the tree, and he was part of his father's company. He was part of the War of the Lost Alliance, and I don't remember if it's in the book, but in the movie, he's the one who cuts the ring from Sauron's hand. I don't know.
No, he does that in the book. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he's such a hero, but it just shows the ring will tempt anyone. Like even Gandalf didn't want to touch it because he knew he would try to use it and it would corrupt him, because that's just what it does. So yeah, it's just a tragic end for Isildur in this. After all that heroism that we've seen, and that hopefully we get to see more of in Rings of Power.
Right, yeah, because like if you just see him in the movie, you get this idea that like you don't get a good sense of how much of a hero he actually was.
Yeah, it's very much like, it reminds me a lot of Tertullian. So much of what we have that's not biblical, that is reference material from the early church fathers, was kind of put together by him. And he was this faithful Catholic all the way up to like the last 10 years of his life. And then he runs down this heretic race, and you're just like, come on, man. Like, you were so close. and you gifted us with all of these, all of the letters from, Ignatius of Antioch, and so much of what we've got from the early church fathers comes from his library. And he was, and that reminds me a lot of Isildur. He was a great man who then fell at the end.
Or it too, like for us as Americans, it's like Benedict Arnold. He was a heroic American general, won some very important victories, but he's overcome by pride. He felt that he was being passed over for promotion by leaders who were less deserving, and that pride and desire for ambition and personal advancement left him open to being tempted when the British came to him with an offer. So it's like, it's all too real world what happens to Isildur. Like, forget that there's a magic ring involved, and it's very real world, Yeah,
it's almost like Tolkien had experienced the rise of of tyranny in his lifetime.
Right.
More than once.
More than once.
So yeah, like and even though Sauron is, I guess, Guron again, I don't know. He's gone for now. But the ring wraiths are not destroyed. Minas Morgul is not destroyed. The foundations of Barad-dûr are not destroyed. What could possibly go wrong? You know, it's like yeah. But really, we have kind of eventually what settles into place is the state of play that we'll see for much of the Third Age, where it's like it's Mordor and Gondor almost locked in this kind of Cold War for much of the Third Age, where they're either just staring down at one another over this like contested area, you know, like Ithilien and whatnot, or Mordor sends proxies like the Easterlings and the Southrons to attack Gondor, you know, or you've got and Gondor is, you know, both under the kings and under later the stewards. You kind of see this is the case. And what's amazing to me is that with all of his power and influence, Sauron is in the command of all these nations of men. He can't destroy Gondor. Like, compared to the lands Sauron, that it's implied Sauron has access to, Gondor should be pretty easy to subdue. And yet he's not able to do it for the entirety of the Third Age. I find that really fascinating.
Yeah, it's almost the reverse of the idea of what we were saying, that because that Mordor and Barad-dûr and the Ring and Sauron can't all be destroyed because they're all tied together. But it's almost the reverse of that with Gondor, because and the kingdoms of men, because you have the descendants of Elendil still around, or and eventually you have one descendant of Elendil around who can reclaim the throne and lead the men against Sauron and Mordor. So, and you have the will of Iluvatar working its way through the hobbits, and Bilbo finding the ring, and eventually Gollum in not slaying Gollum, and then Gollum being the key to destroying the ring, because no one could destroy it. Like it's just not possible. Like even Frodo at the very end wanted to take it because he just didn't, like, no one can overcome that. So you had to have the Gollum there to be the one to be the one to actually take it and fall in, maybe be blown in by a gust of wind from the Iluvatar.
Yeah, you have this sort of so the Witch King attempts to do the same thing to Gondor that he did to Arnor, right? And the two big plays in Arnor were divide the kingdoms, right? So divide the men against themselves, which he tries to do, right? The kin
the kin strife.
The kin strife.
Yeah.
And then the plagues, right? He has the witch plague up in Arnor that decimates them. It does the same thing at Gondor. But it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work in Gondor the same way it did in Arnor. And you have this I think honestly one of the biggest reasons it doesn't work as well in Gondor is because Gondor finds ways to overcome those things, and especially with the dwindling of its people, bringing the men of Rohan down, and calling for their aid against one of the many Easterling invasions that occurs during the Third Age, and then bringing them and settling them in the northern portion of Gondor, which had been bereft of people for so long, and calling on the aid of other people, but basically not insulating themselves, kind of the way Arnor seemed to have.
Yeah, Arnor didn't have allies, really.
Yeah,
and that's and it's interesting you mentioned like bringing Rohan into it, because it's funny that the kin strife basically leads to that, because part of the reason for the kin strife is that the kings of Gondor intermarried with families of northern princes who would eventually become the ancestors of the Rohirrim, and there were factions in Gondor who didn't like this intermarriage. You know, they were essentially like, you know, you're weakening the bloodline or whatever, and that causes the kin strife. But those alliances being forged with the Northmen will pay dividends centuries later when you get, you know, when they essentially cede their northern provinces to the Rohirrim, and they create this buffer, you know, this essentially this, you know, having essentially a warrior people on your northern flank is like, yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Let's take the horse Vikings and put them slightly north of us. So when the danger comes from the east, we can, you know, anvil and hammer, right? Gondor can act as the anvil, and we can bring the Rohirrim in as the hammer instead of having.
And they guard the gap of Rohan too from the Dunlendings. So it's like, yeah, they serve this, you know, there's. I'm sure a lot of it on Gondor's part was like real politic. You know, they're like, yep, we need these people on side, you know, to fill in this area. But what and Jeffy, you know, you and I have spoken about this before. Like, it does become like a genuine friendship between two peoples. You know, a genuine alliance.
Yeah, and we see that, you know, we did a whole episode on Rohan like a year and a half ago or so, whenever that was.
Multiple episodes, I think. Yeah,
when the movie came out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we did one on like on the history of Rohan, basically. But yeah, and it's interesting how it all kind of plays out, and in that the Gondor they have to call, you know, we did the short film, the Horn of what was it, I forget the name of it. The Horn of Gondor, I think, the one where they have to send.
Great.
They're sending the guy to try to find the horse lords to help Gondor. So we see, you know, their history, their long friendship play out, and you know, eventually it is kind of brought back together and like solidified forever in Éomer and Aragorn, because they're as the new kings of their realms, they cement that friendship. You know, basically re-cementing their friendship that whichever king of Gondor gave to the first king of Rohan.
Oh yeah, the oath.
Yeah. Well, it was Steward by that point.
Or Steward, okay.
Yeah.
Right, Steward Kirion. And speaking of the stewards, and also the Witch King, Pat, you had mentioned how the Witch King essentially destroys the kingdom of Arnor. One thing, though, he does manage to do to Gondor is kill its last king.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing he managed to pull off in Arnor with the boats, right? He captures as the last king of Arnor is trying to escape through the northern seas. He, you know, and all the people who live up there like, bad call, man. Like the
bad call. They're like, like, don't you know, like the Witch King can control the weather? And he's like, oh, whatever. You're like,
here's my ring. Hold on to it.
Poor Arvedui. I mean, like, Arvedui should have known it was coming. His name means last king. So I'll be fine.
I'll be okay.
My name only means last king. Yeah. But I think it was Eärnur is the last king of Gondor before the stewards take over. And he had no children. And the Witch King basically taunts him. He's like, you know, nah, I bet you won't come in and do, like, fight me one-on-one like a duel. And he's like, you know, and no, he did not become a wraith like in the video games. That did not happen. Like in the Shadow of Mordor games, everybody becomes a wraith in that game.
Okay.
I don't know why. Isildur becomes a wraith. Arnor becomes a wraith. Helm Hammerhand becomes a wraith. I'm like, stop doing that.
Oh.
Well, Kimmin just gets salty about being named Kimmin, so when he becomes the Witch King,
exactly. Yeah. My name is Dirt.
He's gonna, you know, call out all the kings. It's like I couldn't be the king because even though my dad was king, even though he married
I'm
his
gonna
cousin.
relish whatever happens to that guy. It's gonna be great, if nothing else. But yeah, what do you guys think about the transition of Gondor from the monarchy to the care of the stewards, but it's still kind of a quasi-monarchy. They have all the power of the kings, but they don't call themselves kings. It's kind of like the papacy, I guess. They're like the vicars.
Oh, it's not kind of like the papacy. This is like, if you want to find a direct allegory to explain the papacy to somebody and why it's different from so many other like prophets or rulers over the other religions, I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. And just like the papacy has good popes and some not so great popes down the years, the stewards of Gondor, some of them are really good and some of them are Denethor.
Poor Den.
Yeah, and he wasn't all bad, but it just like toward the end he kind of lost it.
Well, he's another Isildur kind of character. He's great until the end. As the same, same trap that Saruman falls into with the Palantir.
Yeah. He's too busy doom scrolling on his seeing stone.
Yep.
And he becomes, corrupted like so many people do, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
he even says kind of the same stuff I hear people say who doom scroll. The West has failed. I'm like, yeah, I know. I've heard this before. Denethor said that.
Yeah. That's the end of it all. Yeah. But yeah, it's, I think as far as, the stewards being an allegory or a metaphor or however you want to put it, for the papacy, I think it's probably, and I can remember very clearly, like when that struck me. I was just, thinking about the papacy and thinking about explaining it to people because I do a lot of catechism stuff. And then I was like, oh my gosh, it is like directly related to the stewards of Gondor.
The stewards of Gondor, yeah.
They're not, the Pope's not the king. He's just waiting for the return of the king. And he's just holding the keys and he's got the power to bind and loose until the king shows back up. And then he's gladly going to hand them back over, at least from what I hear from every Pope. I think it was Paul VI who once said, I would not wish this job on my worst enemy.
Right. I mean, there's a reason why the room where the Pope vests for the first time is called like the Chamber of Tears or the Chamber of Weeping or something like that. Because, when you're vested, like it's like when the full weight of the office that you've been elected to comes upon you. And you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think that's true probably for bishops and even clergy or religious. Like when you say the words of when you give your oaths to your bishop or when you give your oaths, you're taking your final vows or whatever it is. There's a lot to that. And you're like, it's not, you're not signing up for an easy life. Or you shouldn't think you are. If you are,
yeah.
You're
Bishop Barron said that recently on his podcast. They were asking him about they're like, well, some people say the life of a bishop is full of comfort and ease, and he's like, comfort and ease, certainly not.
Not if you're doing the job right.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of things, but it's not comfortable or easy. So.
Yeah.
And certainly being steward of Gondor was not. Although what strikes me is that there were people in Gondor who could have claimed the kingship if they wanted to. Like the princes of Dol Amroth. They're literally princes. They could have probably made a claim for the throne if they wanted to. And they don't. And I find that very interesting.
Yeah, I think they're of a higher nobility than the stewards, so they recognize that they're not meant to be the kings of Gondor and eventually.
And they're not
Arnor.
of the House of Elendil either.
Right. Yeah.
They're of another Númenórean lineage. So they've got this high lineage, but they're not the House of Elendil.
Yeah,
and
they don't have
the ruling house.
Yeah, they don't have the descendants from Eärendil like others do. Or if they do, maybe it's so diluted at this point, it's not like a direct line or anything.
Well, I want to say in the Forgotten Tales, it talks about them not really wanting to leave. Like, they don't want to go to Minas Tirith. They would rather hang out on the seashore. They have the same sort of sea lust that comes over pretty much anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and they have elvish blood too in part of their descent. So there's that inherited sea longing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because isn't Denethor's wife, wasn't she from Dol Amroth?
Yes.
And that's probably part of why she died, is because she was sent from the nice seaside home into a
oh, it says straight up that's why she died.
Yeah, just across the street from Mordor, and you're in a dark gray stone city, and so
I've always admired though Imrahil, the Prince of Dol Amroth, and it's too bad he was never in the movies. And I always got this sense from him that he blames Denethor for his sister's death, and for the deaths and for Boromir's death, who's his sister's son. Because then when Faramir is injured, it's his uncle, the Prince of Dol Amroth, who saves him. And he knows Denethor basically sent Faramir, who's the only living reminder of Imrahil's sister, out on a death mission, like a suicide mission. And he comes back and he tells Denethor, like, it doesn't really come across when you just read it on the page, but he says, "Your son has returned, Lord, after great deeds." But I can kind of see him saying that in a very kind of like, your son has returned, Lord, like, I blame you for this, like, first my sister, then her eldest son, now our only living son. I blame you for this, like
pulling out his sword and sharpening it while he's staring directly at him.
Right, yeah, and it says something that as soon as Aragorn shows up, Imrahil is like, "You're the king. You're my liege lord. That's it. Like, no more steward." Like, he immediately signs up with Aragorn as soon as he shows up.
Yeah, and I think my thought, or my speculation at least, is part of why Denethor hates or dislikes Faramir so much is he looks a lot like his mother, and he reminds her, and maybe she died in childbirth. I can't remember if that's something that's mentioned or anywhere, but like he blames Faramir for her death, and he's a constant reminder of her. So I think that's, at least in my headcanon, that's why he's so anti, Boromir reminds him of himself, yeah, and Faramir reminds him of his dead wife, and that's part of why, probably losing his wife is probably the grief dread, is kind of what led him to falling kind of down the dark path a little bit more than he probably would have. So
probably starts his doom scrolling, and
a tragedy happens. Yep, and then he's like,
put down the phone. Palantir.
he'll give the same excuse. I'm just trying to be informed. Yeah. I'm just trying to be informed. It's important to stay in the loop about the news. And so he's like looking.
Because in the book he's using the Palantir, isn't he?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't think in the movie he is, but in the book he is.
No. Yeah. At least it doesn't say outright in the movie that's why he.
I thought it did. Maybe it's the extended editions.
It might be.
I didn't think so. I didn't think so because I thought the only Palantirs we really see are the ones Saruman has. Is the one that Saruman has.
I don't think it shows us in the movie. I think Gandalf kind of he either obliquely references it or references it directly.
That he's looked into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe so. But we only see the one though, so I don't know.
Right.
Oh no, I guess I'll have to go rewatch the movies now.
I'm sure they were like, well, we can't have two Palantir in the movie. That would confuse people.
Yeah.
And it's like,
there's 7.
They think so little of audiences. They're just like, to be confusing.
Yeah.
Like, But in the meantime, Sauron is back. He has set up shop in Mirkwood to become the necromancer from The Hobbit.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting because by this time, Gondor has effectively been turned from a kingdom into a fortress under siege. Basically the continuous raids made by Easterlings over the years of the Third Age, and then followed on by the orcs who sort of reestablish in Mordor. You go from, the capital being Osgiliath or it's Osgiliath, yeah.
Yeah, the original capital.
Yeah, and then having to move that to Minas Arnor, which then gets renamed Minas Tirith because it's no longer the fortress or the City of the Sun. It's now the city of, I think Tirith is fortress or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's like Guard. Yeah, the Tower of Guard. Yeah,
and so Gondor becomes this. It's no longer this sort of like wide-ranging, medieval kingdom anymore. It's now this fortress state where everything is a castle and the regular cities get burned to the ground.
It's Camelot. It's the one fortress of good surrounded by empty lands and evilness. Yeah. But backup is on the way because the Valar have decided to do something again. So they're sending the Istari, or the 5 wizards, to the Grey Havens. Or Tolkien even couldn't make up his mind about this. In some things he says they sent the 5 wizards at once. And then in other writings he says that the blue wizards came in the Second Age?
Yeah, the late Second Age.
The late Second Age, and then the 3 wizards, Gandalf, Radagast, and Saruman, come in the Third Age. But
Gandalf
not
came the
by
first time
meteor.
He comes the first time by meteor.
No.
But yeah, we have the Istari,
and it does say Coronir, aka Saruman, goes east, so dark blue
wizard.
I feel like he is going to end up being Saruman, and I'm just like, come on,
just accept it.
Yeah,
just let go, Pat.
What?
Join us.
If you accept it, then if they don't do it, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
He still looks more like Fu Manchu than Saruman, but yeah. In any case, yeah, the Istari are basically given Mission Impossible. They're like, yeah, we're sending you a handful of Maiar to oppose Sauron, but you'll all be handicapped because you're going to be using mortal bodies the whole time, and you'll be able to feel hunger and thirst and tiredness, and your mortal bodies can potentially be killed, and all the other weaknesses that comes with mortal bodies, but you'll be able to do some cool magic stuff and also rally the free peoples of Middle-earth against Sauron. And this secret of what the Istari, what the wizards really are, is basically only known by like a handful of elves. And probably Aragorn. Like, he knows. But like Círdan, Elrond, and Galadriel, and maybe a few others, like Glorfindel, know what the wizards really are. And to everyone else, they're just like, oh, you're these old men who don't age and can do magic.
Yeah, I do really wonder what the rest of the elves think of Mithrandir, because they all seem to love him. And I'm like, he's got a glow, like he's got to have that, like, that otherworldly glow that the rest of men don't have. So he seems to not age the same as them. So what do they think about this guy? Because it's like this perpetually old man who's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, I mean, they probably suspect he's a Maiar or something, but they're maybe they're being obedient to the Valar, but not questioning things too much. Or a lot of time elves just seem to like not be too curious about things. They're just like, it's whatever. We're gonna live.
Maybe they
so.
think like maybe they just think it's a mystery, like Tom, because the elves don't seem to question what Tom Bombadil is. They're just like, yeah, he's this thing. He exists. We don't know really what or why, but so maybe they just take it as like the same kind of stuff, the same kind of thing. Yeah, and as we know now from the Rings of Power, Tom Bombadil trained the wizards. And it's like,
well, yeah. he was the Valar Melkor, so he's got that.
No.
That's no. Of all the things Tom could be.
But is this and do we know like that Círdan essentially gives Gandalf his ring of power as soon as Mithrandir gets off the boat? Essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Which, I don't know if Saruman knows about that initially, but he eventually finds out. And that's kind of the root of his jealousy against Gandalf. It's like, you get to have a ring of power. I don't, like calm down.
Well, and their conflict out in the east that we're seeing in Rings of Power. They're
that's
jealous
right,
that he gets
the friendship of the Harfoots. Wait.
I can't remember if it's in the Lost Tales or the Unfinished Tales or something like that, where it goes into like this meeting of the wizards where Gandalf he's sitting in a corner blowing smoke rings, and Saruman's like, that must mean something. That must be like a secret code just meant for me. Smoke rings? Rings. He must be talking about rings of power. The smoke comes from the hobbits. He's telegraphing to me that the hobbits have the ring. And I'm thinking to myself, that, like, you came to the right conclusion, but your math is all wrong. Like, he was just blowing smoke rings. It didn't mean anything, but Saruman, being paranoid, he sees people plotting against him everywhere. And they choose this guy to be the head of the White Council. But in the end, it all works out, right? Because if Gandalf had been chosen, he wouldn't have had the freedom to be the Grey Wanderer, to go around and rally the Free Peoples. That would have been Saruman's job, and he would have. Yeah, that would have been a huge group. That would have been terrible.
Well, it would have been. So, I mean, you think about Saruman and the powers he showcases in The Lord of the Rings, and he has the ability to bend other people to his will via his voice, right? So he could be extraordinarily effective going around to people and, ordering them around effectively or convincing them of things as he goes. Whereas Gandalf has to do it kind of entirely by influence, and it's sometimes hard for him to do that because of both of his appearance and sort of his gruffness of speech. But because of that, because of its influence and that ordering, like if you had Saruman almost would fall almost no matter what because of the pride he's got. But if he was going around ordering all the Free Peoples, you would end up with this sort of overlord Saruman kind of directing the will of the Free Peoples. And then it doesn't end well that way either. And then Gandalf would have to counteract that.
Well, that's what Sauron wants to do, is he wants to rule all the peoples in his one perfect order, using the ring. So that's another reason why Saruman is drawn to the ring, because it could let him do what he thinks is right, which is, everyone having peace and justice and security in his new empire,
I noticed that this lust for order seems to come out of students of Aule, and it's like, Aule, what are you teaching people in your class?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He needs some oversight on his curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rate my professor. They go on to rate my professor, like, bad review. Outlay's classes have turned out too dark lords. So yeah, but it's interesting that Saruman is partially corrupted by initially trying to defeat Sauron. He studies this ring lore, but he studies it too deeply, and it's like he becomes the very thing he's trying to fight against.
Yeah. It's almost like, I mean, I could be wrong here, but from what I've heard, in our faith, that the church doesn't really encourage studying like demonology or angelology too much, because by studying it, you can be drawn into it and want to learn more and more, and it can open you up to, spiritual attack. So
curiosity, yeah, too much curiosity in that realm. I mean, the church has people called exorcists who it's their job to deal with that stuff, and even they have to realize that once they start doing that, they're going to be the special target of dark forces, because they've basically put a big sign on their back that says "kick me," because they're going after So even they have to be extremely careful and vigilant.
It's like I had a priest say to me the other day, he's like, I don't ever play tennis against the devil unless I'm playing doubles. I have, the Holy Spirit with me, because otherwise I'm not going to win.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's the problem. Everybody is sort of tempted to this, I'm going to fix the problem, right? Which is the ultimate root of Saruman's desire for power, right? I'm going to fix the problem, which is Sauron. And the way I'm deeming to do that is, well, I'll just become, the good Lord or whatever, and I can defeat Sauron, and then everybody's going to be happy and prosperous under me. And we see how that works out for the Shire, in his ruling over the Shire, or Fangorn and whatnot. And so, but it's this desire to always be the one that solves the problem, right? And not understand that, no, like the real person who's maybe you're going to be an instrument in solving a problem, but the real person who's going to solve the problem is going to be God, right? And it's our job to do the will of God. It's not our job to solve the problem, right?
Right. Yeah. It's a huge temptation to just want to do it yourself.
Right.
God, I got this. That's such a huge temptation. Or you start seeing your own plans as the will of God.
Right.
You don't pray about it. You're just like, well, I've got this plan of how this should work. And you just think God's going to rubber stamp whatever your plan is. And yeah.
It's the tightrope, right? So on the one side of the tightrope, you have the, I don't need God, I'm going to do whatever I want. And then on the other side is the, my will is the will of God's. I'm going to do this thing because obviously God would back me up. And in the middle is the, no, this is conforming your will to the will of God and actually doing it, whatever that costs you. And that's always the problem.
It's interesting, and as you say that, Pat, Gandalf walks that middle path, and it seems like the other two main Istari go each of the wrong ways.
Right. Because Radagast is like, I'm just going to go do what I want.
I'm going to go do what I want. Yeah, he doesn't stick to the mission, and Saruman is like, well, my way is the best way, and so
yeah. Obviously, the Valar would back me up on this, and then they send Gandalf to break his staff after he comes back.
I love that scene where he's deposed.
Well, and that's why Gandalf has to learn from the Valar Melkor in the form of Tom Bombadil to know how to how to be better.
Just stop it, Jeff. Stop it right now.
No.
Be silent. Keep your forked tongue behind your teeth. No.
Yeah, but you're right, and you see it. Gandalf doesn't live a charmed life. Like even the small amount of his life that we get to see in The Lord of the Rings, it's not a lot of fun. Like, he's always on the move. He's always in the saddle. He's sleeping on the ground a lot. There's not a whole lot of comfortable bedding and very much what we said about the Pope, right? Or the bishop. Like, it's
Bishops,
not ease and comfort.
Yeah. And I feel like each in their own way, Radagast and Saruman, kind of go for, they're like, at least Radagast is like that brother in the parable who's told, like, go work in the vineyard. And he's like, yeah, okay. And then doesn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd rather be comfortable hanging out with my animals. And Saruman is like, I'd rather be comfortable in this castle, with all of my stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And, they also, the three of them kind of parallel the three elves who are in Valinor, right? You have Radagast as sort of the Teleri, hanging out in the woods instead of the beach.
Yeah.
You have Saruman as kind of the Noldor, the fixer, the maker, the planner, and then you have Gandalf as the Vanyar, who is like, I'm just going to do what the Valar want me to do.
Yep, and they're close to Manwë and Varda, like Gandalf is.
Yeah.
Is it's Varda isn't it Varda who puts Gandalf forward and say, like, you should go, It's either Varda or Manwë.
I think it's Varda.
Yeah.
But he works for Manwë.
Yeah. Well, and Gandalf was even scared to go. He didn't want to go. He wanted to, which is he's kind of the leader that you want, as the one who is reluctant to take the power or, take up the call because they're afraid of messing up, or they're afraid of,
There were several medieval popes who once elected tried to flee rather than be installed in the office. And they're like, that's probably a sign that he'll do a good job. You really don't want.
Well,
it's how in the early U.S. Republic, you didn't run for president.
Mm-hmm.
You went back to your farm or plantation or whatever it was and sat back and let other people campaign on your behalf. You did not actively run for president. It's considered unseemly, because it would prove that you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
If you actually ran for president. But
we see that at least in the movie Return of the King with the movies where Aragorn is reluctant to reclaim his birthright. But in the books, he's like, from the beginning, that's what he wants. That's what he's doing. So
right. Yeah. I feel like in the movie they were trying to tie in that theme of, that him being reluctant to seize power would be a good thing because it makes him the anti-Sauron, who just wants power for himself, and so, but whereas in the book, it's more like Aragorn is the kind of humility where he knows exactly who he is. It's not pride that's causing him to put himself forward or anything. He's like, it's that right kind of humility where he's like, no, I know exactly who I am and where I stand in the grand scheme of things. And it would be false humility for him to say, oh no, I really wouldn't make a good king. That would kind of be a false humility, which would actually be spiritual pride. So yeah, we could probably do a whole episode just on Aragorn book versus movie.
Yeah.
That would probably make a really interesting discussion. And speaking of movies, we got a lot more of this in the Hobbit movies, but the White Council finally driving Sauron the Necromancer out of Dol Guldur in Mirkwood. But his flight is actually a feint. Sauron's like, he pretends to retreat, but really he's doing that thing in chess where you yield a less important piece to get something you really wanted. Because he's yielding up Dol Guldur just so that he can go back to Mordor, which is what he really wanted anyway.
Yeah.
Don't
play chess against Sauron, basically.
Yeah. Well, so because he turns, or the Witch King turns, through his efforts, the Third Age turns Gondor into this fortress state. They now are no longer able to monitor what's going on in Mordor, right? I can't send out scouts far afield, especially after Osgiliath falls. And so Mordor becomes an easy setup. So then the Witch King can start preparing the place, right? And, the reason you don't want to play chess against Sauron is because he'll outlive you. He'll just wait till you die and then he'll win. And that's the problem. You have mortal beings up against immortal beings, both Sauron and the Nine. And that's one of the reasons I think a lot of people don't realize why the Nine are so terrifying is because you can't kill them. Like you can unhorse them or giant winged monster them, but you can't kill them. And they can just keep scheming and working their plans. And so Mordor gets set up, over the course of several hundred years for Sauron's return, because it's not like the Witch King doesn't know he's coming back. Like the Nine's whole existence is based on the reason they're still around is because Sauron's coming back.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole time Mordor is looking for the rings. They're looking for the One Ring, and we see a version of that in Ride of the or not is it Rise of the Rohirrim?
War of the Rohirrim.
War of the Rohirrim, yeah.
Right.
What does Mordor want with rings? Those two orcs, yeah. Poor Merry and Pippin, the actors.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, Pat, that like this essentially sets up the state of play, right, for the War of the Ring, where you have Gondor essentially retreated back to like the smallest thing of like borders that it can maintain. And the elves only able to defend their own borders. You still have the 3 elven rings of power out there. Galadriel has the Ring of Air, right? If I'm not mistaken. Elrond has the ring, but then no, or does Elrond have the Ring of Air? I'm not sure. What anyway, like
I can't remember.
Elrond has one, Galadriel has one, and everybody thinks Círdan has one, but it's really Gandalf because Círdan handed it off to him. Gandalf definitely has the Ring of Fire because he's able to use it to enkindle people's hope to continue to fight against Sauron. But yeah, that, so we kind of have the setup. All of this has been, and the fact that Tolkien was able to create this whole history and it feels cohesive, like a real history, just to set up the events in The Lord of the Rings is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, it's partly that he wrote a lot of this first but was still, fiddling with it and didn't have it quite exactly how he wanted it. So it was never collected and published in his lifetime for the Silmarillion, but he was able to write The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings in a cohesive way. So,
well, that's the thing too, is that like the Lord of the Rings exists because he's already written the Silmarillion, but it's not published. He's written The Hobbit, and now he's realized he's got to connect The Hobbit to the Silmarillion somehow. And that's essentially what The Lord of the Rings is. His attempt to make The Hobbit fit into the universe he's established with the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
And there are clues in The Hobbit that kind of fill you in. I think the Noldor are mentioned once, and the ring itself obviously is the thing bridging everything. But you also have, the necromancer, and he's just he realized after he wrote The Hobbit, because he's like, I couldn't keep that Silmarillion stuff out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty amazing. Jeff, do you have a section you wanted to read, or a quote from this?
Yeah, I think just the final paragraph, because as we're wrapping up, I think this, I think it's a really powerful. It just kind of sums everything up so well. So I'll just read. This is just the final paragraph of this section. So, and really of the book, aside from the appendices. White was that ship, and long was it a building, and long it awaited the end of which Círdan had spoken. But when all these things were done, and the heir of Isildur had taken up the lordship of men, and the dominion of the west had passed to him, then it was made plain that the power of the three rings also was ended. And to the firstborn the world grew old and grey. In that time the last of the Noldor set sail from the havens, and left Middle-earth forever. And latest of all the keepers of the three rings rode to the sea, and Master Elrond took there the ship that Círdan had made ready. In the twilight of autumn it sailed out of Mithland, until the seas of the bent world fell away beneath it, and the winds of the round sky troubled it no more. And borne upon the high airs above the mists of the world, it passed into the ancient west, and an end was come for the Eldar of story and of song.
Yeah, again, it's one of those Tolkienian bittersweet endings.
Yeah.
That, the magic of the elves has essentially left Middle-earth, and it's left to Aragorn and his descendants to manage it.
Yeah. It's it wraps it up. The whole book, the Silmarillion, is really about the Eldar, right? Their story. You have the Ankalabeth in there. They play very little part in that, but they're still there. And then the parts in the Third Age. But the Silmarillion really is about the coming of the first coming of the Eldar, or the Elder children, to Middle Earth. They're leaving, they're coming back, and their final goodbye. And that is the thrust of the book. So, it's a history book more than it's a story like the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit is. But that, I think that ending is, Christopher kind of trying to lead us back to this is the story, of really the elder children.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that paragraph just as a way to wrap up. Cause it's almost it's kind of happening along the same times at the end of Return of the King. Like you can kind of read them side by side, and you can, because Frodo and Bilbo are on the ship, and Gandalf's on the ship, and because their ship is the last one that leaves Middle Earth, I believe. Or is there one more ship that Círdan?
Yes, Círdan and
stays a little bit longer.
Círdan and Celeborn leave on the very, very last one.
Okay. Yeah, so this takes place kind of a little bit after that. But because, of course, Legolas and Gimli and Sam eventually all also travel west as well. So,
and Sam and his descendants, I guess, take charge of Bilbo's written Silmarillion. Because again, there's his Red Book, which is his and Frodo's memoirs of the War of the Ring. But then you also had his translations from the Elvish, which is the Silmarillion.
Yeah.
So it's all Bilbo is our recorder. He has put together all of this lore, which is, yeah. Again, I can just see him in Rivendell, pestering all these people who he knows are living witnesses to some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're just like, Bilbo, the reason we came to Rivendell is so that we don't have to think about that stuff anymore. All that horrible stuff that happened in the first age. We're trying to forget about that, please, Yeah. So, here we are, like, what, 2 years later after we started?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
This walk through the Silmarillion. What are your guys' wrap-up thoughts about the Silmarillion? And any favorite sections, favorite characters, moments that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, favorite sections, I really like the stories involving, it kind of goes hand in hand with one of my favorite characters of Finrod. So the stories of him and Beren and Luthien, him and it all kind of runs together. So there might be crossover chapters, but Beren's father, like I just anything Finrod, I really enjoy. And then getting to the Akalabeth, which is, while not a tale that's enjoyable for because it's happy, I really like the rise of the men and of Numenor and of how Elendil maintains that nobility and brings the people to Middle Earth. So yeah, I would say probably the War of Wrath is the final kind of section is just very interesting with of Arundel's journey, and the War of Wrath is all. Yeah, no, I mean it's hard to pick a favorite though, because aside of course everyone's favorite Balerion and its realms. That's got to be highlighted.
That's the shining star in the crown jewel.
Yeah. So yeah, no. Overall, I've read this before, but this is the most detailed we've gone because we've been covering it chapter by chapter and sometimes multiple episodes per chapter. So really been great to get into all the details and all the nuances.
What about you, Pat?
It's like I said, it's very difficult. I think in my mind, the stuff I always go back to are, the Siege of Autumno, the times that Tulkas gets to wrestle with Melkor and then eventually Morgoth. The 5 battles and, the various things that happen in those. It's hard for me to get away from Turin's story. And it's so sad. I remember the first time I read the extended version, it was just like it just feels like a beatdown. But it's such a human story that it's hard to get away from it. The ring crafting in the Second Age, I love that section simply, or the Rings of Power in the Third Age, simply because it fills in a lot of gaps, a lot of details, and sort of works with the annals at the end of the Lord of the Rings. As far as favorite characters, I don't know if I've got one. Turin, of course, and Tuor, right? It's hard not to really, and the Fall of Gondolin section, which of course there's not enough about it, but I love those stories, and I just, because it all feels very real. The problems the people face, the choices they make, the consequences that happen, they all feel very real. And that's, I think, what I really love about the Silmarillion is it doesn't just give you the ability to read the Lord of the Rings and constantly do the Leo point, or the Captain America. I got that reference. Which you can kind of once you read the Silmarillion, you go read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, you will be constantly doing that. Anytime Gandalf or Treebeard talk, or Elrond or Galadriel. But it's just, it feels like a real history. It doesn't feel just like, a made up fairy tale history. It feels very real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, just on on for a second. I started reading The Hobbit again because after finishing this, I was like, now that I've like fully read and we've read again and gone through all the detail, like I want to go back and read. I want to read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Having recently kind of finished the Silmarillion over the course of 2 years, we read it, but talking about it, has helped it a lot of it stick. So I definitely want to. I'm looking forward to going through those and seeing what all things I catch that I may not have caught before.
I think my favorite section actually is the Ainulindale.
Yeah.
Like it is so beautiful, and it's such a beautiful account of creation that actually meshes very well with the Genesis account. It's almost like a supplement because it doesn't directly contradict anything in the Genesis account, but it also, I just love this idea of the universe being created through this act of music, and involving, and the angels kind of being like sub-creators in it. And just like it's just a very beautiful way to think about the unfolding creation of the world. And it was also the first part of the Silmarillion I was introduced to before I actually read it. I was at a lecture that was being sponsored by these years and years ago. Our diocese used to sponsor these lectures, and a local priest was lecturing on Tolkien, and he did a long reading from the Ainulindale, and I had not read the Silmarillion yet. And it just struck me as so beautiful that I immediately wanted to go out and read the rest of the book. But yeah, the Ainulindale and anything involving what Christopher would call the Great Tales, Beren and Luthien, Turin's story, and then the Fall of Gondolin. Which, yeah, again, there's not enough of that, but luckily there's the supplementary books that Christopher put out, which have a lot more extra material for all three of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my favorite character has got to be Huon. He's the best boy ever, best dog.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I just love the idea of this loyal Valinorian dog. He's such a fairy tale kind of creature, and yeah, I just love that. I just love that he's Beren and Luthien's loyal dog. And that's great. So. All right. So, but before we sign off, I believe, Jeff, you've collected some feedback for us.
Yeah. So this goes back to our Call-Beth episode from Tammy. So she says, so I'm all ready for it, and I hear. And I think this was on our part 2 Call-Beth episode. I'm all ready for it, and I hear the disturbing passage where Sauron knocks on Pharazôn's door and says, "Can you spare a few minutes to talk about Morgoth?" And now I've got a picture in my mind of Sauron in a short-sleeve button-down with a tie appearing on the Ring camera. Oh no, the Ring camera.
The Ring camera.
The one Ring camera.
And she continues, "That's not what I was expecting for a dark passage, but y'all never disappoint me." Literally crying and laughing. And then she says, "The Call-Beth is one of my favorite stories, despite being so dark, and Sauron does twist things so that we end up with really the worst humanity has to offer. But the hope of Amandil's family, the saving of the fruit of the tree, Amandil's sacrifice by trying to sail into the west with good intentions. Wow, there's a lot of amazing things there. It is a story of biblical scale, despite being, as y'all said, the bare bones of a story, basically. That being said, every time I read about Sauron and all his glory cackling in the temple, I can't help but picture Wile E. Coyote just before he unwittingly runs off a cliff." And then it's too much to get into, but that led to a discussion of which Looney Tune and Muppet characters would portray various characters from the Legendarium. So that's all in our Discord. So if you haven't joined the Discord and you want to see us getting silly with all of that,
I think I settled on Morgoth or Sauron as Marvin.
There was supposed to be a Middle
earth-shattering kaboom!
You know, like, so that was great. I got to pull out all these Looney Tunes references, which was fun.
So yeah, check out the Discord channel for if you want to see all of that, or put in your your thoughts on which Muppet characters or which Looney Tunes characters. And we were all kind of agreeing, like, why isn't there a Lord of the Rings version of the Muppets?
The Muppets, yeah.
That should be.
If there's a Veggie Tales Lord of the Rings, there has to be a Muppet one. Come on, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason there isn't, I think, is because the Muppets are now owned by Disney, and the Tolkien estate would never hand over the rights to Disney. So,
yeah,
Tolkien famously didn't want to. So,
yeah.
All right. So, if you're wondering, what are our plans for this podcast in the new year? Now that we have covered the entirety of the Silmarillion. Well, for one thing, we are planning on reviewing the 1978 animated Lord of the Rings film, which I think I saw around the same time the Peter Jackson movies were coming out. I had it on my aunt gave it to me on VHS. And of course, we are going to be finishing up the live action Hobbit trilogy with more elf dwarf romance to come.
And more size from Pat.
a lot of bloated scripts and I have some humorous stories from seeing those films in theaters. There were some funny things that happened in the screenings for both of those two final Hobbit movies that I went to. We'll also have our third annual celebration of Tolkien Reading Day in March, and maybe a few other surprises as well. Oh, and of course, we have to do the Rankin Bass Return of the King eventually.
Yeah.
You know, like with the Witch King who sounds like Skeletor. It'll be great. So yeah, we also want to discuss the musical aspects of Tolkien's works and of the adaptations, I know, which go like big into music and stuff like that. So, as well as some of the ancillary material referencing Middle Earth that is in some of the Tolkien shorter fiction, which you can find compiled in the Tales to the Perilous Realm. And while none of them, I don't think, really take place directly in Middle Earth, there are some neat Middle Earth references in there, a lot of neat connective tissue. But if you guys have any topics you would like discussed, characters, events, locations, just let us know. We might be able to, fit it into our schedule. But stay tuned on our, keep a lookout on our socials, our Discord server at sqpn.com for what'll be coming up. So that's it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle Earth. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible, including Stephen F., James B., Helen G., Margaret B., and Michael M. Their generous donations help us to continue to create The Secrets of Middle Earth and all of the shows here at StarQuest, and you can join them at sqpn.com/give. And now we'd like to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about this truly final, and I mean final, section of the Silmarillion, or the entire book as a whole? Who were your favorite characters, favorite moments? Let us know on our great Discord community at sqpn.com/discord, or on Facebook or Twitter. You can also even send us an email at middleearth@sqpn.com, or you can leave a comment on YouTube or Spotify. So join us next time for another adventure in the wonderful world of Middle Earth. And until then, Jeff Haecker, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Middle Earth.
Thanks, Thomas.
And Patrick Mason, thank you as well.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
And I'm Thomas Salerno. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle Earth on StarQuest. And everyone together,
To the
Professor.
His There's another show on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy, The Secrets of Sacred Art. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at starquest.fm/art.